I was born and raised in Denver, Colorado. I am one of the very few Colorado kids, Colorado people left. So yeah, I was born and raised in Denver. I went to the same, middle school and high school as my mom and aunts and uncles. And then went to college at CSU, Colorado State University in Fort Collins, which is only about, an hour and a half away from Denver, and then moved back to Denver after I graduated. So I've been here a long time. It's sort of time to move. I'm getting the itch to like I've traveled a bunch, but I wanna go live someplace else. But yeah, I'm a Colorado kid at heart.
Love it. May I ask how old you are? Because I have no idea.
That's what no one ever guesses. Some people guess very young, some people guess very old.
I
I'm
want to say
29.
30. Okay, I was going to say 30.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So I turn 30 in March of this upcoming year. So
Exciting.
um very so yeah, just I'm itching. I've lived some fun times here in Colorado, but it's time to go. It's time to venture out.
Yeah. I've been watching you for the last year or so, just paying attention. I know I sound like a crazy stalker, but I like to just watch a little bit but I get people on my list about who I'd like
Yeah,
to just genuinely learn more about because I want it to be organic. Like I want to genuinely be
yeah,
interested in someone if we're going to sit down. And I
right.
am very interested. So let's kind of pick through it. Let's start very, very simple. What got you into fishing? Not fly fishing, just fishing.
So fishing was my grandfather. So my mom's dad, um, very old school, grew up in Mississippi, down south, like backwoods sort of man, would take me out from, 3 or 4 years old and would just take me out, wake me up at 3 or 4 in the morning. We would drive to like a lake or a pond. He would set up his fishing stuff. We would stop by the gas station to get worms and night crawlers and then just sit on the edge of the lake for 6, 7 hours, and then he would take me home, give me a snack, and then that was our fishing experience. So from a very young age, I was always he just dragged me to the water. He just dragged me to fish. And I don't remember particularly like fishing, and he's not a very good angler, so we didn't catch a lot of fish. I do remember that. But he always just grabbed me, threw me in the car, threw me on the water, and we just kind of sat. Which is where kind of like part of the desire for just like being outside and loving nature came from, because if you're a little kid and if you're just sitting there fishing is boring, but I got to run around and play in the grass and go look for bugs and just be a little dirty kid, which is always the best.
Yeah, no doubt. So was this in Colorado? Your grandpa obviously
Yeah,
moved that way as well.
yep, this was in Colorado. So this was he was a truck driver, so he would spend a couple years here, a couple years in Mississippi, and just sort of bounce in between. So when he was here, it was we're going fishing, throw the stuff in the car.
Did he prefer Mississippi or did he really truly end up falling in love for the Colorado fishery? Like, did he just kind of tolerate the Colorado stuff or did he end up really loving it?
I to be honest, he is a man of mystery. I mean, I don't think James Bond could pin him down because he's one of those people. He's just an old man where if you were to tell him like, "Oh, I fished on the moon before," he goes, "Oh yeah, I fished on the moon. I used to fish on the moon when I was like 16. I was, I do stand up," and I go, "Yeah, I have a show in Portland, Oregon." He goes, "Oh, I used to do comedy in Portland, Oregon." So
What? Okay.
there's no really basis of truth. So I don't know, but he did like Colorado. Most of my family is in Colorado, so I feel he loved being around his kids and his grandkids. But I think Mississippi was where the other side of his family are at, where most of them were at, the sort of the older ones that he grew up with, not his kids. And so I think there was probably a balance, but I've actually never fished in Mississippi. I've only not only fished in Colorado, but I haven't had the chance to fish in Mississippi. Have you?
Uh, no, not Mississippi proper. No. I fished
Yeah.
the I think I've been on the Mississippi River, but that goes through various states, right?
Yes, that goes through like Arkansas, yeah, all Arkansas, Mississippi. I don't know where it goes down to the Gulf, but yeah.
Yeah, it's everywhere. Okay, so
hmm
growing up in Colorado, and I'm sorry, which part of Colorado were you mostly based in before you went to college?
Denver, so like heart
Denver.
heart of the city. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I love Colorado for the record.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's great fishing. So what about the rest of the outdoors? Was it always fishing or was it just being outside and free and being allowed to be feral that you loved?
So my other grandfather was a wildlife biologist.
What? You have both of them?
Yeah.
You are so
So
lucky. Wow. I had
so
one and he was different, but you had two. Cool.
I had two who both loved the outside and nature. And my Gramps, who was the wildlife biologist, he was more the scientific. He was a birder. He was an angler. Um, so he used to take me like hiking and camping, and we would go birding and stuff like that. So between both of them, it just sort of like it all compacted to just like
You were screwed.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what else to do besides be outside. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with it. I love being. Yeah, I love being dirty. I love figuring stuff out. I love fishing and exploring. And then when I got to college, like actually the scientific part of it was, studying ecology and uh, human and wildlife conflict and ecosystem services. I fell in love because I was just like I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it all got ship shaped. And he named my gramps named me after Eeland. Eeland actually stands for largest African antelope. So there's an antelope in Africa named the Eeland. It's only spelled with one E, but I was named after that. So I didn't really have a choice, to be honest.
I wondered about your name. That's really interesting. So he was also
That's
in
it.
Colorado?
He was in Colorado. He lived in Florida, Sarasota, Florida, and in Colorado, which I've had the chance to fish in all across Florida, but in Sarasota and in Colorado. So yeah, he lived in both places. So also would go visit him, and he would come back and forth.
Got it. So, okay. So then you're going through life. You got both grandparents. You have really
Hmm.
don't have a choice. You're going to be outside. What is
I'm going to be
college
outside.
like? Were you fishing through college? I mean, so not college, high school. Were you fishing through high school?
No, high school I was a snowboarder. So
Ah,
high
okay.
school I was a competitive snowboarder because my gramps was on like the ski team. And he like took me when I was really young, and I got really into it. So I like traveled across Colorado, and a couple other states, Salt Lake, and got to go to some places in Montana. And yeah, I used to compete in snowboarding and slopestyle, half pipe. It wasn't that good. I had a lot of fun, but I was kind of good, but I wasn't like extraordinarily good. So that was like my high school years from 10 years old until I was like 19. My freshman year of college was just snowboarding every weekend, every time I got off, every time I had free time. My friend, we would, during the summer, we would go to Mount Hood, Oregon in Portland,
Hmm.
outside Portland, and go snowboarding because there's snow up there. And we would, I became one of the instructors, and it's just like, yeah, that was for most of my high school. That was it. Sports and snowboarding.
Yeah. And so you're, say, 30. Let's round it up. Let me do the math. I'm doing the math. It would have been a cool time. Like it was really cool back then. And I remember snowboarding going through this big, huge boom, especially if you said you were about 10. It was really fun. They were doing the badass videos and all this. It just,
Yeah.
everything changed. It was definitely marketed well and to a younger audience. It was the cool vibe.
Yeah, it was like the cool, like we would go out on the street and like make videos and put it to rap music and think we were like these badass punk kids. And we weren't. We weren't at all. But it was a fun time. I don't regret it. I don't regret anything about it just because it was another world that I still kind of miss and I don't go that often. But yeah, this kind of it's more open than fly fishing, where it's not as niche as fly fishing. So more people can kind of understand it, and it kind of still feels like that community of like show up, hang out, have a good time. From my personal preference.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Did you at some
Yeah.
point, and I'm totally jumping ahead, but at some point, did you ever look at fly fishing and think, could fly fishing possibly have the same kind of cool vibe that snowboarding does? And I ask because I know I've got over a decade on you, but I remember the time in the industry when this was a conversation. Like this was a behind closed doors conversation. Can we turn fly fishing into what we're seeing happening in snowboarding? And
Really?
oh yeah, and we were constantly deliberating. I mean, I'm a Vancouver girl, or not. I'm
Yeah.
outside of Vancouver, but West Coast BC. And this is a regular
Yeah.
conversation: is can we make it cool like this? We wanted to. We tried. I mean, I think in a lot of ways that era did change it and make it cooler than certainly than it was. But we were poo-pooed upon as soon as you put on funky music and those fun, like, graphics, graffiti graphics into
Yeah.
your videos. We were hit with a lot of resistance. And I'm just wondering if you would have been just on the other side of that. You would have been just too young. But did you ever think in your own mind, this could be fly fishing? Or were they two totally separate entities in your mind?
So I hadn't even learned about fly fishing yet. So no, but I knew that my gramps had done fly fishing in the past. I didn't know to
Ah.
what extent, but I know he had done it in the past. And to me, even though I saw him, I knew that he had done it. I was like, fly fishing that's like what old people do. That's like what old
I know what you want to say. You're like old
people
white
do.
guys. Yeah. It's so true,
It's like
though.
it's like the
Yeah.
boring stuff. So to me, fly fishing was for I think every kid goes through their life where they have a moment where they're like, what I do is so punk and rock and roll, which is what snowboarding was for me because that was, my adolescent teen years. I got my car. We would put the stuff in the car and just drive. So but at no point, even still, I haven't even thought the comparison of kind of when did I see that shift in cool stuff. But yeah, I never thought about anything outside of snowboarding could be cool while I was still snowboarding.
In the bubble. So then how did fly
Yes.
fishing enter your life? When did you first start that?
So that was in college. So I went to CSU to be a veterinarian because I was like, I want to save all the animals. Because Steve Irwin was my idol, and I was like, I want to protect the planet. And
Oh, now
so
it's all
I
clicking. Everything is clicking. Okay, keep going, keep going.
yes.
I'm gonna sit and listen.
So I went to CSU and I was like, I want to be a vet. I spent my first year doing like pre-vet stuff and all my early classes, and was in the pre-vet club. And I was like, not to be mean again, but I was like, none of these people are people I want to hang out with. This isn't the energy or the vibe. Everyone here is really smart, really cool, but I want to have fun while learning stuff. And so switched to fish and wildlife and conservation biology. And then first day of my conservation class, my instructor, Anne Randall, I love her dearly, came to class with like a red-tailed hawk that had been rehabilitated. And then we talked about red-tailed hawks. And I was just like, this is the greatest thing ever. So that was like the first class. Next year or the next semester comes and I'm not doing well in one of my classes. And so I was dating a girl at this time. And my instructor was like, if you all take these list of extracurricular activities, it's like every Saturday, whatever, you get extra credit that goes to your class. So one of the classes was a fly tying class. And so the girl I was with at the time was like, hey, we should go do this. I think it would be cool. We can like hang out, get extra credit, whatever. And I was like, cool. I show up to the class, and this people don't believe me when I say this, but I show up to the class, and the guy who was teaching the fly tying class was my grandfather's advisor when he went to CSU. So my grandfather went to CSU, and the guy I walked in, the guy goes, Theodore? And I was like, that's my grandfather's name. He's like,
Oh.
Theodore Washington? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, I was your grandfather's advisor when he was in college. And I was like, and this guy had to be like 150 years old because
Full
my gramps is
circle.
old. Yeah, my gramps is old. So I go through and we're like learning to tie flies. And at the end of class, we go, now I look back and we went to like this private pond with like a bunch of carp and we had flies that carp wouldn't eat. But he was like, all right, here's some fly rods. Go out and try to like catch a fish. And I just remember looking into the water and seeing carp tailing and like mudding and like something switched or something in my brain goes, I have to figure out how to catch this fish. And like the puzzle pieces just started snapping. And then I think that was the spring of 2014. And then from then I I missed the work. I missed a bunch of classes. I could not stop fishing. I got like a little Bass and Bass Pro, rod and reel combo. And I mean, every YouTube video, every class I could, I mean, I, it was probably a problem and I neglected a lot of stuff in my life, but I just couldn't. my brain just wouldn't let me not think about fishing or like how to catch fish or learn about new species and like where do they live and who catches them and how do you catch them, and it just like the puzzle is still going. So that
Yeah.
was 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years
Yeah.
ago, 11 years
2014.
ago.
So
Yeah.
did your fishing help your biology, or did your biology help your fishing, or none at all?
I think they just went together because I was in a plant ID class and we had to go ID plants, and part of it was like you had to be in the field IDing plants. And like what a great excuse to go fish is to leave class on Friday night, drive up to the mountains, spend all weekend fishing and IDing plants, and then come back home. Same thing with my ornithology class, my macroinvertebrates class, ecosystems. Like every time it was just like a part of my curriculum was like, you have to go do these things and experience them and learn them in person. And then compound that with like, oh, I get to fish this river, or I get to go look for this, or I get to go track snowshoe hares and then fish the tail. Like it was just all these things that just everything just kept coming together. It just became easy. And then once I started fishing, my class schedule just everything was just focused because I didn't have anything else to do besides fish and study. Like it just be on the water and also be learning and watching and yeah.
You are so fortunate to have all of that and be passionate about it is so awesome. I mean, not fortunate.
Yeah.
You've made some great decisions, clearly. So then, as you go on, you graduate, obviously. And did you have a
Graduate.
focus? Did you know where you wanted to apply your studies?
Yeah, I wanted to do large mammalogy, especially like mountain species of Colorado or the Mountain West, which is, bears, bighorn sheep, beaver, sort of the moose, like the big species that people love to see. And I wanted to be a biologist, especially for Colorado Parks and Wildlife, which is one of the best organizations in the country. And so that was like my dream was like I want to be a biologist for the state of Colorado, and I want to do it forever. But as I was graduating, I started volunteering with more youth programs in Fort Collins area, and I loved kids. I love kids, and I just started falling in love with environmental education and getting to be a nerd. When you talk to other adults about the environment, sometimes they like are like, this person, we don't care. This person. But when you start talking to kids about stuff, you can like be silly and show your enthusiasm without someone sort of almost judging you or being like, this doesn't have anything to do with me. And so I really kind of fell in love with that aspect of teaching. And then, following the footsteps of Steve Irwin, I was like, I want to show people how you can be a nature nerd and have fun and share with people. So I worked as a wildlife technician for 2 years in the fisheries department and in the wildlife department. I relocated bears and I did fish surveys across Colorado. And then the next year I got into education, and I've been doing that since 2019.
And you love that. Is that where you're going to stay?
Yeah, I get to be. I love hanging out with kids. I work with middle schoolers now, middle schoolers, and sometimes I sub for high school. But I work with middle schoolers now, and yeah, I get to be silly. I get to be fun. I get to be wrong. I get to learn, and not to be grim, but we as adults were ruined. We're bad people, but for the most part, they have like some hope for the
Yeah.
future, and they can actually do stuff where we are as we are.
We're set in our
Even though,
ways. Old stodgy
yes,
grouches.
exactly.
What's the average age then in middle school? Is that like 13? You have to excuse me here.
Yeah, that's like 10 to 13 ish.
It's a
So like
great age.
puberty, emotions, feelings, stuff, which was horrible for me when I was in middle school. I think it was horrible for everybody, but I also like being at that. And I have a bunch of cousins in my family who are all sort of varying in that age from, a couple months old to 16 is the oldest one. So I'm used to kids. So yeah, I get to hang out with middle schoolers, tell them to stop cussing in class, put the stick down, but
Yeah.
also let's go fish and let's go bird and let's go track, let's go find some footprints and stuff. And then,
It's so cool
man,
because that is the most impressionable age, and you've got that cool factor. So you don't even realize how many lives you're seeding this into so many people, young people's brains. And it might take them 10 years to come around to it. But I know for a fact from experience that when you're the young cool one, and I know this from being a young woman as a Girl Guide leader, being having young girls who are impressionable,
yeah.
having that cool factor and that youth factor goes a real long way. More than I think we
Have
give it
you
credit for.
have you seen that reciprocate? Has that come back to you? Has there someone you've guided and you were like, oh, this was just another day, another client, and then eventually they came back and were like, you're the reason I'm doing this now?
Lots. And not just
That's
young
incredible.
women, but young men. And in fact, I always feel ancient because I'll go to a trade show or something and there'll be someone who's like a professional now in the bass scene, for example, just even
Yeah,
recently. And this young bass pro was like, you have no idea. You're the one who got me into fly fishing. And I mean, he's a pro outside of fly fishing. But he's like, I
yeah.
tried my first fly with you. He's like, I was 14 then. And I'm going, oh my God, and how old are you now? Like, it's so long ago. But
That's incredible.
it comes around all the time, and
Yeah,
not so much in Girl Guides because I mean we lose track obviously of each other, but
yeah,
just yeah, as far as making appearances and guiding and classes, and I mean even yeah, stories for days. Even
yeah,
young Catherine and Dimitri who just got married. I mean, Catherine caught her first steelhead with me, and I was her mentor, and she used to actually work for me. And Dimitri, I gave him his first casting lesson, and now they're both full time in the fly fishing industry, married. They're going to make fly fishing babies, and we hang out around the
yeah.
campfire and we laugh about those days, all those years ago. So yes, very much so, and it's so rewarding.
That's
But
special.
but
That's
I'm
incredible. I like
losing
that.
I'm losing the cool factor. Like the older I get, the more that my like shiny
No.
you shift though. It's like a shifting baseline. Now I get to be, instrumental in maybe like 30-year-olds or whatever. But you have to, we don't talk about this. We have to use the cool while we've got it. I know it sounds stupid and I'm sounding old all the like
Yeah.
I'm still cool, don't get me wrong. I'll always be cool, excuse my language. But like the shine rubs off. So while you have it and you have the opportunity to have it and be in front of these young people, it's really special. So kudos to you. Very cool.
Well, thank you. But I also think that the older you get, the cooler you get
You think?
because you gather all, yeah, I think you gather all this, I don't know, this sort of like lore almost. Like you become like, this is gonna sound bad, but you become like a mythological creature of like
That's true.
people can make up stories and they go, I don't know if it's true or not because they've been
It's like
around a
your
long
like
time.
your grandpa. He's like, I fished on the moon. But yes and
Exactly.
no. I think it depends on your audience. Like Gary Borger. Gary Borger has
Yeah.
got more knowledge than anybody I know. But if I bring him to my young girls, they're not gonna. It's different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
But we know. So it's just a
Yeah.
shifting baseline of knowledge and mythology.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about the next big question I have. And I don't even know if this comes back into fishing, but it's the comedy side of things. So you're a stand-up comedian, right?
Unfortunately, yes. Whenever people say that, I just go, "Yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize." Right then and there, I do. Yeah, I can't believe I can say it, but yeah, I'm a touring professional stand-up comedian. Yeah,
What?
uh,
How?
yeah. I don't.
Where? What's the
I
story?
don't. It just all. I don't. I don't. I'm trying to think. Everyone in my family is, excuse my language, hilarious.
Okay.
Very, very funny.
Right.
Um, I mean, even Thanksgiving, holiday time, I just sit and watch my cousins talk shit about each other. I listen to them tell stories. All my best friends are just people who you can just watch and be enamored with their storytelling and how silly they are. So everyone around me has always been funny. My grandfather, apparently, is a world-renowned comedian. Um, but yeah, I remember the first stand-up special I ever watched was in 2000. I was in middle school. It was like 2008, 2009, maybe. It was one of Cat Williams' comedy specials, and I wasn't supposed to be watching it, but I was over at my friend's house, and I had a sleepover, and his brother put it on, and I remember all my friends were like doing something in the basement, and I was glued to the TV of watching this one person just talk to thousands and thousands of people like they were his family. Like he was just like having a conversation. And I was like, to me, that's like a superpower. To me, I remember thinking like, how can you do that? That's impossible. And so that was always a brain dream of mine. I was like, I want to do stand up one day, even if it was just one time. I have to do stand up. And so then in high school, I was like, I had a yellow notebook that I have hidden from the world because there's horrible things in there, but a yellow notebook with ideas and jokes and stories about being in high school and all this stuff. And I was telling people like, yeah, I'm a stand up comic. I had not talked to anybody, but I didn't do it. I thought it was like the coolest thing in the world. And then I've always loved public speaking. I can, I could speak in front of 100 people, 500 people, 1,050. Like, it just doesn't matter. I don't get nervous. It almost gives me butterflies of like, to me, it's almost like, and this is going to sound corny, but like tarpon fishing. That's my favorite fish. And so it's like this adrenaline of like, what's going to happen? Like, the thing is going to come and then we're going to do it. And like, you just have to keep up with it. So it almost gives me like good butterflies. And so college, it was my first semester of my senior year. I was going through a pretty tough time, feeling pretty alone, feeling like I didn't have anyone really kind of in the world. Like, people I went to high school with, I wasn't friends with. People I was in college with, everyone sort of had their own group. And I don't wish this on my enemy or anyone, but I felt like I had nothing. I didn't have anyone in the fly fishing world. I was like, I started listening to podcasts because I was like, these are the only people I can talk to, which is very, very sad. And so I was like, something has to change. You can't just like sit in this like this. You can complain about it, sure, but that's not going to solve any problems. So like, let's figure out what to do. So I was like, let's do stand up. You've always wanted to do stand up. You were listening to a podcast. They said, go do stand up. And so I was like, if I'm funny and I get some laughs, I did it. I did the thing. If I'm not funny, you could say you tried it. No
You
one's
still
going to
did the
remember you
thing.
anyway.
Yeah.
No, nothing's going to change. So, like, nothing is going to change if nothing changes. So I went to a mic. I did stand up. It was like 4 minutes long. I remember I spent like weeks on the river just like reciting the same words and jokes to myself. Did my set, got off stage. People were coming up and they're like, "Oh man, that was great. How long you been doing it? You were so good. Blah blah blah. That was so great." And I was like, "Oh, it's my first time." And they're like, "Oh man, you got to stick with it. You're good. Yada yada yada." And then I was like, "Oh man, I'm the greatest comic of all time." And then went the next like 3 or 4 weeks to the same open mic, and I don't think I got one laugh in like a month after that. And once again, the same thing with fishing. There was like this puzzle thing where I was like,
Yeah.
well, why? Why did that happen? Why did I get laughs this time? Why didn't I get laughs this time? Why is this person doing well? Like, it was like this, my problem solving brain, same with the carp, same with fishing, was like, well, how do I figure this out? And so then yeah, I realized I have probably a little bit of OCD. I get compulsively obsessed with stuff because it became the same thing of like, I watched every stand-up special. I read books. I watched documentaries. I went and watched shows. I wrote. I couldn't take my brain off of doing stand-up. So,
Right.
and that was 2019, 5 years ago. Yeah, coming up on the 5 years ago. So here we are.
What was it? Did you ever figure out why that night you had laughter and then following you did not?
I think partially. I think partially was because the person who introduced me said, "Hey, this is this person's first time," and I think people gave me more grace to go, okay, he's trying. Most of the audience, most of the time in comedy, people want you to succeed. I feel like in life, people want you to succeed for the
Yeah.
most part. There's
And
only
they
very
want
few
to
people.
laugh. People go
Yeah,
wanting to laugh. Yeah.
yeah. No one's going to. I'm not going to say no one. Not
Yeah.
everyone's going to a comedy show to sit and like pout. And so I feel like the first time people are like, he's trying his best, which is all anyone could ask for. And then after that, I think I probably had a little bit of the cockiness, of the like, oh, I did this last week and I'm incredible. And then I was like, oh, I'm not even a fraction of what could be or what talent is. But I went every week. I went back and just like you know, every mic, every show just kept doing it. So was it healthy? Once again, probably not, but I've been enjoying the journey so far. There's a long way to go.
So I know this has nothing to do with fishing, but I'm just genuinely curious because I am very appreciative of comedy. I go to a lot of stand-up comedy. Excuse me, I watch a lot of comedy. I actually will gauge somebody, right, wrong, or otherwise, I will gauge somebody's intelligence based on what they find funny. I
Ooh,
yeah.
tell me how or why.
When it's really dumb humor, like beyond, I don't know, a lot of the real garbage that you see in some of the television or some of the
Yeah,
movie world, when people find that real trash comedy and such obvious comedy funny, I do kind of look at them and go, hmm. But the real subtle, and I know everyone has their own style of comedy, but
yeah,
for me, I appreciate comedy that's all between the lines. And you have to be
yeah.
able to let your brain think in between each of those, in between every word. Like cadence is huge for me. When a comedian gets the cadence right and knows
Yeah.
exactly where to stop, when to emphasize, I find that quite brilliant. So I'll just, every once in a while, I'll find something very funny and I'll look around and just see who else is laughing. And usually, I don't know. I don't want to, I'm not like, I got to stop because I've already just said that I judge someone's intelligence on it. But let's just say that I do find that various levels of obvious or extreme comedy can appeal to different people, maybe. And I'm going to leave it there so I don't sound like a total stuck up snob.
No, I agree. I mean, I also have I love, very intellectual, like not like super smart comedy because I still like fart jokes. I don't know why. It's just silly stuff where I just go, that's dumb. That's so dumb, but it just makes me laugh. Um, but I do like the nuances of comedy. And I like hearing people's story. I like storytelling rather than just like this happened, this happened. That's crazy. I like sort of I want to know what you're thinking and also what happened in the situation culminating thing.
And I like when they'll start their skit here and then end up here, but then they bring it back full circle to here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I like the journey. I really like the journey and the
Yes.
looks, like the when they stop and just look at you and raise an eyebrow, like, did you catch that? Because I just
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
pulled you through a whole journey and we started back at the beginning. I don't know. I
And then you
like
go,
that kind of
oh yeah.
comedy. And then
Yeah.
also because I find I have my sense of humor is disgusting, right? And anybody who knows me closely, I don't do it on the podcast because it would just be too offensive, but I have a very perverse sense of humor. So when I can find somebody who's funny based on storytelling and again, bringing someone through the journey and they're not relying on shock factor or perversion or profanity, I find that very intelligent comedy. I find that that's the
Uh,
hardest comedy to navigate.
so you like that because it's not what you normally like,
I think
right?
it pulls me. Well, no, because I actually don't find perverted comedy funny. I like my comedy. My own sense of humor is perverse, but it's not. That doesn't make me funny. It just means that my
Oh,
that's where my brain is. But
yeah.
I think because I'm so far out of the scope of really brilliant comedy, when somebody can be funny without those things,
Yeah.
the shock factor, the profanity, the perversion, when you can be funny and avoid all of those real obvious, easy
Yeah.
routes, that's where I think the true humor is. Personally, that's the sort of comedy I like to follow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think who are your favorite comics? Do you have favorite
Let me have a
comics that you
think
can think of that you like?
that are mainstream. I find Cat Williams quite funny. He can be a little
Oh, he's
profane.
so yeah, I think he's one of the greatest comics of all his storytelling. And yeah, I like comics who as soon as you listen to them, you just go, oh, we're friends. Like this
Yeah.
is a conversation when you're not even doing stand up. We're just like hanging out. So Cat Williams is great.
There's a guy, I wish I knew his name. I'd love to give him a plug right now. On a cruise I was on earlier this year. Don't judge me. I'll never do a cruise again. But I was on a cruise and he was a cruise comedian and he was 12 out of 10 the best comedian I've ever seen.
Really.
He was unbelievable. He was his
Do
highs and lows. He hit the peaks. It was a it was a climatic effect.
do you know cruises are the worst comedy gigs for comics?
Oh yeah. Oh, he told us. Like he made it hilarious as he told us. Yes. And he was doing his
Because
first
it's just
ever G race. So it's funny because I loved him so much. I went and saw everyone that he had. But we had my daughter,
yeah.
I had my daughter there. And so I took him to like the G rated or the kid friendly one. And
Uh-huh.
it was
Yep.
his first one ever. And it was hysterical watching him try to navigate that humor. I'll tell you, I'm going to have to find his name. He was so bloody good.
Yeah, there is the cruise thing. They pay well, but it's just you're stuck on the boat of people you have to do comedy for, and most of
Yes.
the time you have to do clean, which clean is good. I also enjoy doing clean sometimes, but it's not the easiest to do like half an hour, 45 minutes of just like there's children in the room, but make it funny clean.
Yeah.
And then you have to do different hours because people are going to come back to shows. So you can't do the same jokes over and over. If
Uh-huh.
people don't like you, you still have to see them at the buffet after.
Yeah.
It's just like a
This is what they
nightmare.
shove you in some sort of little bunk down below. Oh, he was hilarious.
Yeah,
Because I got to see the kid version, which was actually very funny, mostly because
hmm,
it was so awkward for him to
yeah,
navigate. Got to see him do, and then I went in
yeah,
the evening and could watch him do the adult version. And then right after him, because I think he was actually opening for the quote unquote main event, who was this
yeah,
Australian guy who was just wretched. Every joke was just too much.
yeah,
And it was just such a stark contrast. And I realized actually in that moment, I really don't like that real obvious comedy. I like that more subtle between the line comedy.
yeah. If you can guess the joke, you don't want to really hear it.
Yeah, like I know what your punchline's going to be. And I will think about who else.
Yeah,
Now that you got me questioning who I used to watch stand up all the time on that comedy night. This is going back years ago. There used to be back when we had cable, there was there was a whole comedy channel and that's all that they did. It was that and like skit, gag jokes or like
yeah,
the caught on camera jokes and then all stand
yeah,
up. And there was some really good stuff on there. But it's hard to make, you hear about like Louis C.K. I don't mind him either. I find he can be quite clever, although controversial. And I don't mind a bit of controversy.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's a hard gig, and you hear them talk about how it's a hard gig. Did it make you feel more alone? Like this whole, I've got to come back to the being alone because I know what you mean when you said that you felt alone and there was no one to, like I remember being in fly fishing. All I wanted to do was talk to fly fishers, but nobody wanted to talk to me. I didn't fit in with them. And then obviously that changed. But I can only imagine in listening to the documentaries I have with comedians, there's a lot of that for them too. They're on this high, the lights shut off, everybody goes home and they're by themselves a lot of the time. And then the shtick is over, right? And you get to go home and your face sinks into itself. And it can also be lonely, I'd assume.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that after my first time performing it, I didn't like go like, oh, life's great, but it definitely, I started to feel a piece of like a part of a community that I hadn't felt because now I can walk into any comedy club, any comedy show in the country, and people just know you're a comic. It's like, I mean, you could go to the grocery store and like try to strike up a conversation about fly fishing, and maybe someone will know what you're talking about, but for the most part, they're like, I don't, I don't get it. And but if you talk to someone else who fly fishes, maybe on the specific rivers for specific fish, there's already a connection of like we understand something about each other that other people can't understand about me. And so I feel that way about fly fishing, and I feel that way about comedy, where I walk into a place and I started walking into the comedy club and they would be like, "Oh, hey, what's up, Eeland? Like, are you going up tonight, or do you have shows this weekend?" And it's almost like someone's always checking in on you that you're around, or people are like, "Hey, come do this show," or like, "Come hang out," or yeah, something. It helped in my healing process, which still took a lot of years of because I like to be alone, but I don't know if people sometimes understand when I say like feeling alone,
They're
like
different. Being alone and lonely are different things.
yeah, like having roommates, but like not like no one's seeing you. I think was is the best way I could describe it. Like you could be in a room of 1,000 people who are talking to you, but no one like seeing you. That was like the core of what I felt of feeling like I can't be with family. No one sees me. I can't go and, work out and go to the gym. I can't go to a fishing thing because I don't, and I leave these things and no one's checking in on me and no one's doing that. So that's how I felt pretty severely. And fishing helped with that because fishing was sort of something that could help my brain not sit there and go, you're alone, no one is around you, no one loves you, you have no one. I could that could happen, but then I go, oh, I just missed the fish, or like a fish just rose, or like let's go move to the spot. So it kind of kept my brain moving, and then stand up kind of helped me take that feeling and then go on stage and say like, hey, this is sometimes on stage I would be like, I don't feel good right now. I feel pretty alone. And sometimes people would laugh and it's sort of like eased it out of like, hey, and I've had people who I've talked about stuff on stage. My number one goal is to make people laugh, but I've had shows where I just go, I don't feel like it tonight. I just want to talk, which is the selfish thing to do because that's what therapy should be for. But and people have come up to me and been like, I feel that way also. I feel that way right now. And I go, oh, well, bro, you are not alone because I also have felt that way. And then just like in that moment, it's just like, so that, and not that comedy is healing because I think, if you feel that way, you should definitely talk to someone because I did it. I do what I do best. I push it down and then I figured it out later. But talking about it out loud has helped, and it's helped me, and hopefully it's helped other people. But that's not why I do comedy. I do comedy to make people laugh, but that comedy has definitely helped may help me feel seen and heard, and like I have a voice and stuff, even if it's about stupid shit.
No, I think it's
Yeah.
great. And I remember there's a comedian I listen to, Josh. I listen to him all the time when I'm working. I'm going to pull him up right now. He's really funny. He does what you're talking about, where he'll just be like, oh, this is how I feel. Now he talks about current events. If I scroll long enough on here, he'll pop up because I watch him all the time.
Oh, Josh Johnson.
Yeah, yeah. The guy who talks
Yes.
about current events all the time.
Yeah, I got
And
to work with him in Fort Collins and in Denver,
you
and
did not.
he is incredible. If something happens at 9 a.m. in the morning, at
Yeah,
12
yeah.
o'clock in the
Yeah, yeah, that's him.
afternoon,
100%.
he has 45 minutes of this thing, and you go, how does your brain work like that? But
It's
he is incredible.
genius. It's genius. He is so, and this will actually tie in later to our
Okay.
conversation.
Okay.
He will tie in later to our conversation because you know how I got put onto him. Well, I'm trying to remember the first skit. I think actually the first skit I was watching was around the election because he takes polarizing topics. But then I am a huge hip hop fan, and obviously the whole Drake Kendrick thing I was following pretty closely.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so when I watched his breakdown of that was it for me. I was like, I get this guy. I'm going to keep watching this guy. And it actually, coming back to Drake, will come. And again, this will all make sense in a bit. That was one of the things I was watching with you. So bookmark that. We'll come back to it. But he is very funny. So I like his type of humor because I don't feel
Incredible.
like he's throwing jokes. I feel like he's talking to me. I feel like he can come out and say, I don't feel so great today. Well, let's talk about it. Let's be buddies. That's the sort of humor that when I told you I like humor, like the silence, the look at you, the raised eyebrow, like, did you catch that?
Yes.
I love
Yeah.
that sort of humor.
Yeah. I got to perform with him, and I watched I think he had 6 shows. I watched every single show, and his like joke writing and ability to like figure out what his like thought process on stage and like tie it all together, but also it's never like malicious. It's always inquisitive of like, I just have a question about this, and but then it's making fun of little stuff. Like yeah, he's one of the comics where I just go. But he was a writer on the Daily Show for like 5 or 6 years. So
Ah, okay.
his brain works as like news topic. How do I feel? Let's combine it. I'm like, how do you have 45 minutes on something that just came out this morning? How is that?
It's
Most comics
genius.
have like one joke where they go like, this happened in the news today. But Josh Johnson's
Bing.
like,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. We're going to explore all this together.
Let me break it down for you. He's so good.
Yes.
So what about fly fishing? Did you ever think about pulling fishing into your comedy? Kind of, I mean, obviously you and Hank Patterson have totally different styles, but there is a niche for it. Very clearly there's a niche. Did you ever think, even from a business stance, this could work if I incorporated, or was it just too off brand for you?
Kind of both. How I kind of described like talking to someone at the grocery store and they understand exactly what you're talking about. Fly fishing, especially in the circles and the communities I hang out, is still so niche that even if I get up on stage and try to make jokes about fly fishing, I mean, maybe one person is going to be like, I know what Euro nymphing is.
Yeah.
Like
It's way
there's
too niche.
maybe one person who's gonna even understand. Like most people go like, "Oh, fly fishing, the thing that you wave around." That's as far as the thing goes. So in order to poke fun at what I want to poke fun at, you have to know about like sort of the the culture of it, the activity of it. You have to know about like the bones of it to understand like why I'm being completely heinous or why it's wrong or why it's funny or whatever like that. So I've tried to write about it, but it's just I don't have that skill yet. And I'm pretty sure if I took Josh Johnson fly fishing one time, he would have 8 hours on fly fishing. And I'd be like, why didn't I think of that? But I've done shows at like the fly fishing show. I've done shows at fly shops across the country. And I
Cool.
mean, my dream would be like if I could go on tour across the country to fly shops and like do shows at night at these, and they can like have them in the fly shop, have a mic stand, and have people come to the fly shop and do shows. That would be like exceptional. But that's about it. And then I sort of took fly fishing and comedy and combined them to do comedians on the fly to take comics fly fishing, which is something I'm still trying to like just get more money so I could produce more and have bigger comics like Josh or, eventually Cat Williams or
It would be
Bill
so
Burr or Jessica
cool. Could you
Folsom.
video it and do it as a series? Is that what it
I do it.
is?
That's what I do that. Yeah. So comedians on the fly is where I take comics fly fishing. So I have like 7 episodes, 8 episodes now, and I give them waiters. I take them onto the river, and I get to hear about their comedy careers, and they get to talk shit about fly fishing, which is my whole thing because I'm like fly fishing as much as it has given me so much of the world and so many cool things. It's fun to talk shit about stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's my series now that I'm trying to like just mud crawl until someone goes, "Hey, this is a $1 trillion idea. Here's $1 trillion, and you can make as many episodes as you want." That would be the dream. Then I can go on to fly shops and do shows, promote the show, hang out with the community. But long term vision goal.
That's so cool. I really hope that that happens. I really genuinely hope that it catches and goes boom. Where can people find that right now listening to the show? Can they find you on YouTube? Where is it?
YouTube and Instagram, comedians on the fly. That's it. Comedian. I think if you just Google comedians on the fly, it'll pop up. Yeah, there's 8 episodes now. I'm editing one right now. It's not sponsored by anybody. I do it all myself. I have my friend film it. I edit it, which takes months because I'm not good at editing, but I'm getting better at it. Yeah, eventually, I want to take like Theo Vaughn. I want to take him down to Louisiana and go red fishing. I want to take like my friend Jesus Trejo down to Mexico and go like bone fishing. Like I want to go swing for steelhead with Donnell Rawlings. I want to do all these things, but it's just that's like way way down the line.
Yeah, cool. Well, you got to get, and Joe Rogan, he's a hardcore outdoor guy.
Yeah,
Get him on there.
yeah, and I
I
could
love
I
this.
could even get him to talk stuff. Yeah, yeah. We'll
Cool.
we'll see
Okay.
one day. So that's
To be
that's sort of
continued.
where intersectionality of comedy and fishing have like started and stopped, but how I mesh them.
Yeah, I love this. Okay, so coming back then to your timeline, because now I'm really curious. Actually, let's go to Instagram. You mentioned Instagram. You used to be the Black Steve Irwin on there, right?
Yes.
So what happened? Are you still that as your tag?
No, it's just Eeland Stribling.
Yeah, because I
So
tried to find you to invite you some time back, and I was like, oh, the hate must have gotten to him, and he's off Instagram. And then I found you again through the Drake thing, which I'll come back to. Everyone's like, what the hell is she talking about? I'll come back to it. I found you again on that, and I was like, ah, here he is. I got him. And I reached out to you right away. So why did you change your name? Because it was pretty easy to find you, the Black Steve Irwin. Who is this guy?
it's incredible, and I attribute a lot of my, you know, social media success, Instagram success to the name because you're not going to forget Black Zero. So my first name was Flippin' Bird Production, which was like my snowboard group. on Instagram. And then when I started doing more environmental education in college, as I was sort of graduating, I was like, Steve Irwin's my idol, but I can't use Steve Irwin because that'd be insane. That's disrespectful. So I was just like, I'll just throw black in front of it. So I put up Black Steve Irwin. There was no one had taken it. It was available. It wasn't like the underscore. It was like Black Steve Irwin, and then just sort of continued growing as a person, as a conservationist, as an educator, as a comedian, and then um, it was like a year ago where I posted a joke about, you know, pregnant women. And people enjoyed the video, but I had a moment of like, I don't I genuinely love what Steve Irwin did for me personally, I think for the world and for a lot of people. And I don't want people to equate my just silly jokes with the namesake like Steve Irwin. You know, like if I was just doing like conservation work, I'd be like,
Fine.
cool, I'll do this forever. But I talk about stuff on stage and I posted on. If I didn't post online, I'd be fine. But I post up online, and I don't want someone to go like, "Oh, I'm equating him talking about this to Steve Irwin." So
I
out
can
of like a
appreciate that.
respect thing,
Yeah,
I was
definitely.
like, well, I want this Instagram name because it's incredible, but I'm not gonna just keep it just for like clout social media. I was like, I've also was going through a time where I was figuring out more about myself, and I was like, I think I'm finally ready to just be Eeland, because I would go to these trade shows and people would go, "Oh, Black Steve Irwin," and I'm like, "Hey," and I'm like, "My name's Eeland," and so there was sort of this thing where I was being recognized as Black Steve Irwin and not Eeland, and then I was getting older, and I'm like, I like my name, I'm not like ashamed of my name, and I want people to, whether they like me or hate me, go like that's Elon. That's he I feel like Black Steve Irwin created like a bubble for me to like make room for myself. And then Elon sort of was like, I'm gonna be the one to actually do it. Cause now people are like, oh yeah, that's Elon. He just fishes and does comedy and teaches kids. Like it's almost like a nothing now where Black Steve Irwin people are like, what? Those things don't go together. Black people and nature. And so I was like, all right, let's. So a couple months ago, I changed it. Didn't make like a big thing. Just posted like, "Hey, I'm changing my Instagram name, and here's why." And you know what that has meant. Not much, but it's nice having like just being Eeland, just being Eeland Stribling, which
Yeah.
is something you don't never imagine yourself saying. But yeah, just being Eeland Stribling.
Yeah. And you
So I
deserve it.
kind of retired it.
You're at that age too now where you're about to enter into a whole new era of your life as you.
Exactly.
Let's talk about this black thing because that is something. There are people listening right now, not on YouTube. They're on Spotify, iTunes, whatever, and they're like, "Wait, what? He
We're like,
what?"
oh no,
I no, only because I specifically don't mention. Like,
turn it off.
I do not get this novelty with women when I'm introducing a woman or podcasting another woman. I can't, I can't overlook the fact that she's a woman because we can hear that she's a woman. But when
Mhm.
I'm lucky enough to get, someone of a different, let's say black, brown, whatever, nobody knows. It's so beautiful. And
How
then
funny!
I
How
get
funny it would be
to,
if
yeah.
someone was like, "I thought he was a white woman. I'm turning it off." I thought it
Right.
was
But no, it is so beautiful because I get to actually just do my job and learn about your timeline and leave all of that in the rafters. But now that
yeah.
I've made people listen and you've got an incredible story, let's talk about this. So, okay, so you're black. Great. Let's talk about a couple things that are
Yeah.
happening right now. Black people in the outdoors, which like I'm from Vancouver area. So for me,
Hmm.
this is all very strange conversation because like I was the minority in school, right? Like there's
Yeah.
there's it's multicultural at its multicultural
Yeah.
living at its finest. But this is important because I thought we were so far beyond this conversation. And listen, I don't have the patience or the energy to have this conversation again. I've had this conversation with other guests. Go listen to other past guests of the show, everybody. But I want to talk about the conversation around this whole Drake thing because I was really surprised by it. I was laying in bed in camp. And just to give some context to you, I've recently gotten in bed with, or I'm in a relationship with Mayfly Outdoors. So Able Reels, Ross, airflow lines. And that's because not only do I believe in the product and have I been a long time user organically, but Jeff Wagner, who works with them, I'm a huge fan of
Mhm.
his. I appreciate and respect him as an angler, a caster, teacher, business, everything. And so it was a natural relationship. So I knew that there was going to be this Drake thing happening. And for people who are like, what are you talking about, Drake? The magazine? No. Well, yes, no. Drake, the rapper, fellow Canadian, who was on the cover of the Drake. I knew all of this was happening and I couldn't say anything. So when it all dropped, I was like,
Mhm.
hee 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 hee. Let's see how exciting this is for everybody. And I'm reading through the comments. I think it was the Fly Fisherman Instagram account. And again, just to give perspective, because there are people right now who have no idea what I'm talking about. Drake and his best friend, Nico, from Canada. Nico, and I've been talking to Nico quite a bit on Instagram. And so just in DMs. And he has always loved fishing since he was a kid. And they're from Ontario. Like there's really good fishing there. And he and Drake are childhood
Yeah.
friends or whatever. I don't know exactly the story there, but they actually do fish. It's not just this like, it's not just hype. They really do fish. I don't know how much about Drake, but I know Nico does. So anyway, long story short, for people listening, they team up. I guess Nico's clothing brand is what's his clothing brand?
So it's called Nocta. I'll let you continue, but yeah,
Yeah, Nocta.
Nocta, Nocta. Yeah, Nocta.
And they did a collaboration with Nike and then eventually with Able. And just again, the little asterisk here, I understand it was expensive. The reel, the nippers, the whole collaboration was expensive, as things are usually when they're limited edition. Forget that. Let's go to the marketing side of things. So I was talking to Ross as he's driving down. He's like, hey, we were talking about an article we had coming up because I was doing Lonnie Waller's kind of tribute. He's like, oh, I'm heading to New York. What are you doing to New York? Nike's dropping a line. Don't tell anyone. I was like, oh, I knew about that from Jeff. He said, yeah, we're going to film, blah, 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 blah. So 2 weeks goes by. He posts this reel on his Instagram, or Fly Fisherman posts the reel on Instagram, and it's showing this party doing the launch. And it's like, you see all these people who are, I think I saw you're in there, right? Yeah. And you guys are at this party, and it looks like people are learning how to cast. And obviously, there's drinks being poured and all that fun stuff. But it looked like a good time. And it shows the launch of this whole collaboration and the comments. I was excited to read the comments. They were atrocious. Like the most disgust. I sat there, I woke my husband up and I was like, you got to see this. And not even racial. Like, I'm not even going to go with that. I mean, you can, I'll follow your lead on this, but is this what we've come to? Is this where we're, but if it was an AC/DC thing, it's super cool. I don't understand. Make it make sense. And I could see and hear your frustration in the comments. Talk me through and give some context, perhaps, for people who have no idea still what I'm talking about.
Okay, I love it. You're actually the first person I've gotten a chance to talk about this too, because it was a mix of emotions. So, like last year, this guy reached out to me and said, "Hey, we're doing like a private event in New York for, I can't say the client, but it's about fly fishing and instructing." And I was like, "Cool, I love teaching. I teach kids. I'm a guide. It's easy. I can teach anyone from 5 to 100, whatever you need." Okay. And so he's like, cool. Starts giving me contract stuff, gives me dates and time. He's like, it's in New York at this time. And I'm like, oh, in New York? Cool. We must be Central Park. We'll probably do some carp fishing, yada, yada. He's like, it's in a parking lot. And I'm like, okay, it must be a parking lot close to Central Park. And he's like, it's in Chinatown. And I'm like, this is crazy. And he's like, all right, you can't say it yet, but the client is Nike and Nocta, which Nocta is like Drake's OVO brand, and then Nike, he has a partnership with him. And I was like, oh, what? And so he's like, yeah, here's how it's going to go. It's the collab party. So we're going to have all the items there. And then we're going to invite people from New York City, like real New Yorkers, not like media people. We're going to invite real New Yorkers to this event to learn about fly fishing. And they're like, so can you talk us through how do we do this? And so I was sort of acting like as a consultant of like, we sometimes we do rings, sometimes we do mouse traps. We'll have hooks, we'll have flies with no hooks so people can see the flies, but they don't get hooked. We can have maybe a scoring system, maybe all this stuff. And they're like, all right, cool. It's like a week before they send me the blueprints, and they filled a parking lot with the water. It was full of water. They filled the parking lot with the structure of water, put rings in it, put up this like LED screen, and we're like, this is the place. And so I got there and I was like, this is not what I was expecting because I'm very grassroots. I'm a poor angler. I can just show up to the river in Crocs and sweatpants and we're gonna fish and hang out. This was like incredible. So the nights are going on. There's like 3 nights. And when I say it's real New Yorkers, I'm talking about born and raised in Queens, born and raised in the Bronx, Upper East Side, Harlem. I could barely understand some of them. And I'm like, they sign up or whatever, come over to me. There's like these little ring targets. You hit the targets and you get like on the score. Whoever has the highest score of the night gets to win one free item from the drop, from the reveal. But it's like real New Yorkers who are like, yo, what is this? And I'm like, this is fly fishing. They go, you do this? And I go,
Yeah.
yeah, you could do this everywhere. And so people are really like, although the event is big, it is very like walk up to someone on the street and go, here's what fly fishing is. And they're like, I only seen it in movies. I don't know what this is. I met some of the coolest people I've ever met who followed me on Instagram, who I still talk to, who have since gone back to New York and like hung out with them and like met their homies. Like it was really like what I value and what community is in fly fishing, which is don't just show someone, don't just say this, like show up, show someone what you do, what your passion is. And if they love it, they love it. If they don't, at least you got to share it with someone, right? And so we did the event. They came and filmed, and I was like, let me get some of that footage because I could like use that to sell later for something. And he still hasn't sent me the footage. So if you talk to him, tell him I want some footage. And then I forget about it. And then I like posted on my Instagram the reel and stuff, and people were like, "What? That's so crazy." I don't know if I was supposed to do that, but I did. And then a couple weeks go by, and it pops up, and I'm tagged in it, and people are like sending it to me. They're like, "Is this you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And it's pretty much just like a hype reel. Same thing with snowboarding. Early, cool vibe of music, party, cool, young vibe,
Yeah.
and
Community.
community thing. And I was watching it. I was like, "Oh yeah, this is like a cool thing." And it's like quick cuts. I mean, it looked like a music video, but for fly fishing, which I
It
was
did.
like, I didn't even think twice about.
No,
And then
I
people
have thought
started like,
twice about it. I have fantasized about that for 20 years. It was like all the things from that era, from early 2000s, in a fly fishing video. I was so stoked. Anyway, sorry to
yeah,
cut you
I
off.
mean, it was, no, it was, I mean, it was really cool. And then, of course, people started sending me the comments, or I started seeing the comments. And at first, there was like a couple of them, I was like, it was everything from like, what the hell is this to like, oh, this is cool. And I was like, that's normal, whatever. I expect that. But I'm, I, when I'm not going to talk about race too much, but in the last couple of years, with a lot of fishing companies and outdoor companies supporting minority owned businesses or minority people in the industry, I love, my favorite thing is when a company posts something and people get in the comments and get mad and go like, I'm never buying this product again, or go woke, go broke, or you guys are selling out to the whatever. I go in those comments and I have a field day because to me it's so funny that someone is getting that upset about something that's so small and is probably not going to affect their life at all. Um, so when companies are like, "Oh, we're helping out this business," and someone's like, "I'm never buying these products again. I'm going to burn all this stuff." I'm like, "Hey, can I have it so you don't burn it? Can you donate it to help out?" So I went to the comments and sort of started doing the same thing, just like you said, like people were like, "Oh, this is ruining fly fishing." $1,500 nippers or a rod that's too expensive. And I'm like, there's already $1,500 nippers
Yeah.
that say Grateful Dead on them. There's
Don't matter.
already
Just don't
rods
buy it. Yeah.
that are
Sorry,
too
I'm dropping
expensive.
vulgar rap. Just don't buy it. Just don't buy
I
it.
mean, it didn't make sense, but it's just how one is how the internet works in general. But it's just it was unfathomable that people couldn't separate whatever personal views they had on this event. And I was just like, it didn't matter. And also the event kind of made it seem like it wasn't as community focused, which is part of me was like, I wish not that it was edited different, but that it showed a lot more people who were there who were just like hanging out or even interviewed someone and said like, hey, what is this event to a regular person? And they would be like, oh, I just did fly fishing. It was super dope. Cause I think that would have been like, oh, this isn't just a company making money, which every company is going to make money. That's the bottom line of any organization. But that it was actually for people being like, yo, I came here to this cool Nike Drake event. I learned a little bit about fly fishing. I don't know what it is. I'll probably never do it again, but I can say I did it that one time, and that's And then who knows? A couple years, there may be something that people vote on, where they go like, "Do you want to protect fly fishing?" And someone goes, "Oh, I did it that one time. That was cool. I like that. Yeah, why not?" But that's what I that's what I got the chance to experience. So I'm not gonna go into too deep, but yeah, I was in the comments. I got into an argument with a bunch of people. People were sending me messages being like, "You're kind of what's wrong with being a white guy?" And just like the whole spectrum of stuff. And I'm a comic, so my whole thing is like, I know you're not gonna learn anything. I'm just gonna laugh about this and have a lot of fun because the more I can piss you off, the more I'm gonna enjoy myself.
I learned a lot from it. Sitting back and watching it, I learned a lot from it. I will say from a marketing stance, like if I had my finger on that market, if on that campaign, I would definitely have done more of the communal stuff, like you said, because that's really cool. And I would even show them walking up to someone on the street and being like, "Do you want to give it a try?" Because I find that very interesting, their reaction. But also, I would have had
Yeah,
less focus. You've only got 30 seconds. Every second counts. I'd have less focus on the drinks, but that still did not warrant the comments. So the comments I understood were, "This is expensive." Yes, it is
yeah,
expensive. Full
that's
stop.
true.
Next subject. Lots of things are expensive. A lot of things that drop are expensive. You said it exactly right. Businesses are in the business of making money. But the comments that got me were the comments about this is the death of fly fishing. How, like, make it make sense. So you're okay coming to me and saying, we need to get more women in the sport. And I hear that from business, big business, small business, retail, everybody. And the guy on the river who doesn't care. Everybody wants me to get more women into the sport. But why is it not okay for Drake? Let's just throw him under the bus because he won't care. Why is it not okay for Drake to get more people into fly fishing? Why? Why? Make it make sense. And I know half those people who are commenting weren't even racist. I know for a fact that they were not all, maybe some were, but most of them, they're just not thinking. So why is it okay if you guys do a Tim McGraw reel? I'm not saying they have, but say that he did. But this is not okay because you don't like the music in the back. Really? And I had these flashbacks to 20 years ago. Remember I told you the behind the scenes conversations about how do we
Hmm.
make it cool? What do you think was the first thing we did when we started making cool videos? We put hip hop over top of them. This is the death of fly fishing. We've come 20 years and y'all still want me to get more people into fly fishing. And as soon as we put hip hop onto something, it's the death of it. Like, make it make sense. Do you get it? I
Yeah,
don't get it.
I don't get it either because it to me just logically it doesn't make sense. I mean, even from a if you look at a business marketing standpoint and you go, okay, uh, let's just say 100 people in the room, we already sell to 30% of the people, right? And how do we get more people into it? We open up the doors and we're not going to try to like virtue signal, but we're going to say like, hey, we're going to incorporate some things from other cultures that say like, we want you all to come experience this. And like, then people go, oh no, that's going to ruin it. Well, it's like, well, why did the first group get to enjoy it? And then the second groups don't get to enjoy it, even though it's about business. And if you're looking at it from a business standpoint, if you go, we want more money, then why not try to market to people who are in it to go give us your money so you can become in part of the fly fishing thing. So that point doesn't make sense. And we also probably have to be careful because Drake may sue us if he watches this because he's going around just suing people for stuff. But
Drake, I will never take you fishing, and I will listen. I will listen solely to Kendrick because I'm one of his
um,
biggest supporters. I actually love him, but also I think the other quip I heard or read was, there was only one token white guy in the video, and he looked like maybe he'd had a couple drinks. But at the end of the day, like, let's just talk about it from a logistic stance. Yes, sure. I mean, I guess they could have pulled in more white people. And when they make all these white videos, they could have pulled in more black people. But you said they were literally going off the street and grabbing local people.
I mean, this was New York City, probably one of the most culturally diverse places, if not the most culturally diverse place in the world. So, I mean, yeah, there were people walking on the street going, "What is that?" and walking in, but they put it in like community Reddits. They put it in community boards. It was spread throughout like young kids. There was like a Travis Scott concert the night before. A lot of those kids came to the event. So it
This is so
I
cool.
guess
What an opportunity. I've waited my whole life for this. I cannot believe. Sorry, I'm not trying to cut you off, but like, what? You don't get those kids very often. Not
no.
Travis Scott followers.
I mean, like to say I could put out 100 ads, I could put out 100 things, especially in Denver, to get like the cool young kids to be like, hey, I have this fly fishing thing. No one would ever come. Maybe one or two of them would come, maybe with a friend, but no one would ever come. But to have like real New York people show up and go, yo, yo, B, what is this about? And I show them and then they go, dead ass, that was tight. Like that was the whole that was the whole evening. And I go, oh, these are real people. And yeah, some of them were, Dominican, Puerto Rican, black, Mexican, Asian, white. Like it was New York City. So it was like
Everybody.
it was the melting pot of the country. And yeah, in the video they show the bearded white guy and then some other people in the video. But like even that was like, well, that's what the outdoors and fishing is anyway. It's everyone
Everybody.
consuming it at any point. So to say like, oh, because there's drinks and it's cool, it's ruining fly fishing. But then you go to a fly fishing show or you go watch fly fishing films, and
And there's drinks and it's cool.
it's the same films every time. And it's like, yes, there's a whiskey pour, or there's a tequila pour, or there's a slow motion fish, and then they're cheering the beer. Like
It's the
it's
same
the
thing.
same thing.
It was
So you're
so confusing. I couldn't figure out, and I guess I still don't understand what I'm missing about it. I'm half tempted to turn it into an Into the Backing episode where we sit down as a roundtable and really figure it out because I still don't understand. I just don't understand. I'm confused at the has it what has been the response now? Has it leveled out?
well, I don't know. I haven't checked up on it, and no one has tagged me or sent me anything. But because especially since the murder of George Floyd, and like a lot of companies sort of virtue signaling, being like, we want to help. How do we help? And now it's like we don't care that much. I've seen. I'm not. I don't hold it again. It's not something that stresses me out every day. I don't wake up and go like, "Oh, I got to check those comments again to see all the
Yeah,
hate and
no.
negativity." Where I just go, those people said their stuff. They're into it because, like you said, there are a lot of good companies and good people who who are helping women in the sport, people of color in the sport, different social classes, different ages. There people, with disabilities, people with health concerns. There's all these people who are actually doing stuff. So I would rather focus on that. But I mean, like I said, I got into arguments with people who were like, you know, directly saying like, you people are ruining fly fishing or what's making it bad. And then also people
I
who are
did
just
see
like,
some of that. I saw some of that actually.
and then people who are just saying like, well, if you actually want to be inclusive, why is this stuff so expensive? And so there was the spectrum of like, okay, here's a logistic problem for people to actually enjoy it. If someone's new, they're not going to come in and buy $1,500 nippers, $1,000 reel, a $2,000 rod that's custom made. And I'm like, I agree with that.
That's
I am
true.
on your side. And a lot of the
Yeah.
stuff in the comments, I was like, I agree with you, but then you added this other part of, this is supposed to be for the cult, like cool. And I was like, you got to pick one. So, I mean, I would love a roundtable discussion because I'm curious to see what other people think. Because I think I can be pretty fair, and none of those comments or stuff is nearly half as bad as you hear in a comedy club or in a comedy green room with comics. Because comics, we have no filter within each other. So I've heard the worst stuff imaginable said to people. So Instagram comments don't bother me because I'm like, that's nothing compared to what has been said.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, maybe we will do that because it really confused me. And I'll tell you, I remember rafting the river the next day. We were on the Maurice, and I was talking to Charles about it. He was as confused as I am, and he's pretty old school, and he was confused. And I just felt so. I actually felt like I'd been punched in the gut a little bit because I felt
Why?
like because we worked so hard, even just as from a woman's stance and as a young person's stance, we worked so hard to make just push fly fishing over that hump that it was stuck in, to make it cool. And we dealt with all the bullshit there. To get past the woman stereotypes, we dealt with most of the bullshit there. And this was like the final thing for me. And I think I was a little sensitive because a few years back, I used to volunteer. A couple times a year, I would do some work with one of the inner city schools in Chicago. And the kids would see me on the Steve Harvey show. And so that, again, back to the cool factor, right? They're like, well, she knows Steve
Yeah.
Harvey. And I don't know Steve, but I was on the show. They were interested. And they started, one of the teachers there was doing this like, would do a little bit of fly fishing program with them, or fishing, not fly fishing, but a fishing program for catfish and or whatever it was. I think it was catfish. And he would take them on these excursions. And so we would do this like Q&A where I would sit down with the kids on a video call and we'd sit and I'd answer all their questions. And
That's cool.
they were the kids that you would see in that video.
Yeah.
And two of them stuck with it and for like a few years after would reach out to me. And I think that was like the final thing for me were those kids, seeing them and knowing that was like the final, not genre, but the final push that we couldn't get over. Like I said, we'd done the young people, we'd done the women, but like a bunch of little black kids, this sounds so messed up. I don't know how to do it properly. I'm not PC. I'm not good with this stuff. I'm just pretty straight. But these little kids who had no exposure to it until Steve Harvey and me and this amazing teacher and Catfish. And that was the final push. And I've been waiting for someone to give the push, and it couldn't be me. And then there's you guys. And I don't care if it's Drake or Eazy-E, just like somebody give it the push. And the push happened. And I've been waiting for it for so long. And it fell flat on it. And it didn't just fall flat on its face. It was met with resentment. And that really upset me. And so I floated downstream feeling like I'd been punched in the gut because the final push that I thought we were ready for, we weren't ready for. And like, I've got to ask myself, okay, I'm a business person, in many ways, business first. So how would I have felt, or how would the public have felt if it was TFO? I don't fish TFO. I don't endorse TFO, but they're affordable. So say TFO comes out with a $150 package and they pair with the same marketing campaign and they did it. Would it have been met with the same hostility if it were an affordable reel? Or would you have the opposite effect of people saying, oh, well, of course, it's got to be the broke company. They're not broke, but like the welfare
Well,
company or whatever the hell, right? Like, then do we go derogatory? I mean, are we not giving it more class by going at it with a high price tag? I don't know. Like, societal, especially the last few years, I'm just confused with where society's at. I can't understand half of what's going on out there. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I felt I was stung by it, and I still don't know how I feel about it. That's one of the reasons I wanted to ask you how you feel about it, because it's got to be frustrating.
well, yeah, and I mean, I feel like if it was TFO, and I used to fish TFO. That was like my first rod I ever bought, and then I broke it in my car door, like so many of us have. But
Yeah. I also
um,
broke my first rod in the car door, by the way.
yeah,
I was so excited.
because he was
Yeah.
not paying attention.
Uh-huh.
But I think, yeah, I think you nailed it exactly. People would have been like, oh yeah, let's give them, or like let's give people the cheap rods. Yeah, they can only afford the cheap rods. Why couldn't you give them like the nice? Why couldn't we advertise the nice stuff? This is ruining it because it's going to make more people in the fly fishing. But I. I mean, I also don't know how to feel about it because even in my very short time in the fly fishing industry, which I've been fishing for, religiously for 10 years, 9 years. I've been in the fly fishing industry since like 2020-ish. So like five-ish years, like seeing how stuff works and meeting the people and business side of it. And I, I thought I'd seen it. I thought I saw a change of how it's going forward. And this isn't just about race. I think sometimes people misconstrued my purpose and direction. It's just race, but I'm talking about race and gender and just everything encompassing of every single body on the planet. Um, I thought I saw a change in the fly fishing industry. I was like, it's headed in the right direction. Like we're moving in the right direction. And then the video comes out, and I'm like, okay, this is new. And then the comments come out, same thing with resentment. And I go, oh, this isn't. This is just the same old, same old. But you've been in the fly fishing industry for so much longer. So did you feel it was moving the needle in like not kicking out the old white guy, because I don't like that. I don't believe in that as a concept, but
I
as in
thought we
like
were going to
just
join
it's
forces.
becoming the bland, normal, anyone can fish.
Yeah, I felt like I've been now in the industry for over 20 years, and I felt in that moment like we had taken a major step backwards. And I'm not the person, look, I don't do pandering. I got so much grief for not posting a black square on my freaking Instagram thing, partly because I was really sick at the time, but also because I don't do that. I don't do sound bites. I do long form conversation. I will sit
Yeah.
down. I will be totally vulnerable. I will let you tell me where I'm wrong, and I will listen to what you have to say for 3 hours if you'd like. I do long form conversation. So I'm not that person. But for me in that moment, from the inclusion side of things, it would have been one thing. Yeah, no, there's no other way to say it. I felt like we took an enormous step back in that moment. Fly fishing, one of the things that I love about fly fishing is that it doesn't matter if you're a doctor and I'm a fishing guide, or if you're an X and I'm a Y. It doesn't matter, because when we're on the water together, that is all that is the common story. And then we can share different chapters of our lives with each other. And I
Yep.
was really excited because I thought that we were all going to join forces here. I thought that we could all just be from different ilks, but have the same common theme. And I saw in that moment that people weren't ready to see past that. Not, I mean, so obviously some people were, but yeah, no, I don't know. I have to put some better thought into this, because I really would like to have the roundtable discussion on this. And I think I will commit to doing that if I can find somebody to speak on behalf of the quote unquote other side, which will be hard to do publicly.
Oh no, that's easy. I feel like that's easy.
Okay, I'll lean on you. You can help me get a panel going here. But no, yeah, I felt like we've taken a step backwards, and I was really disappointed. I was really
Yeah, I
disappointed.
didn't I didn't think a step backwards. I just thought, if we were going 60 miles per hour, if we were going like at a steady pace, and I was like, oh, we're headed in the right direction at this speed. I just felt like the speed got dropped back of like, no, there's still not like work to do, but there's still a lot of, I honestly just believe it's time. Like, because now I'm seeing, just like with the kids from Chicago that you're seeing, two of those kids who got into catfishing, a couple of my students that I've worked with this summer and then the past couple of years who have come back to my kids fly fishing camps, in 5 and 6 years, they're going to be the ones, traveling the countries to fish or teaching people or being guides. And then that's going to be normal then. And then the generation after them is just going to be like, oh, yeah, that's just, who was Eeland? That old guy? Like, who was April? Just yeah, we don't remember. We just know all the
Zero cool
people who we
factor.
met.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's I wanted to believe that, oh yeah, this event, people are gonna see it and be like, yo, that's dope. Or even just I just appreciated more the comments of people being like, oh, Drake sucks, Kendrick sucks, like those stuff, because that was like, oh, culture and fly fishing. That's where
Yeah.
we're meeting, right? Because that's where people are going, oh, I don't care about the event, but it's cool that this is happening and it's part of the culture and it's part of fly fishing. I was like, that's fun, right? But then just all the other stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, it's gonna take time of people just sort of dissolving out, and then more women guides, more black kid guides, more body shape. I'm also not
Whatever
very
it is.
good at being
More
PC.
older women,
Or
like my last podcast, I just spoke about,
yes,
women after they get past a certain age feel invisible.
yeah,
So just generally inclusion. And I do have to say, just for people who are not in touch with the whole cultural thing, the whole, not like us. It's very funny, the whole Kendrick "Not Like Us" reference in a lot of the comments. I want people to know that that's a song, and a dig at Drake from like a beef. It's not when they're saying, I mean, I'm assuming when they're saying "Not Like Us," they're talking about Kendrick. They're not talking. Unless it's very clever, unless they're being very clever with
I
their innuendo.
see. I thought it was very clever because I was thinking there's the Kendrick people of the fly fishing industry, and then the Drake people, and they're choosing their sides and like doing their own rap beef, and not
Dun,
like
dun,
us
dun, dun.
or Family Matters is like this group talking to this group, and not like so. It's like but I enjoyed that because
Right.
that's they understand the culture
Yes.
of just being on the internet, which is normal, and then they understand fly fishing, and they're taking those together. And it's maybe it has to do a little bit about race if you're paying attention to Drake, like whatever that is. But that's just about like they're just talking shit about fly fishing, which is ultimately like my thing because it's like, yeah, once you can knock it down and just go, oh, this is important for certain aspects. But I tell my students all the time, I'm like, if we want to go fish and you want to take a nap on the river, no one cares. Take a nap next to the river. And they go, oh, we could do that? And I go, yeah,
Yeah.
fishing is dumb. We'll fish when we have a chance. And then they go, oh, I want to fish. And then they end up fishing the whole time. But they just have this idea of like, oh, I don't have to like, it doesn't have to be this thing you like hold on to, this thing that you're like, ah. And I'm like, no, no, no. Let it go. Let's just enjoy ourselves while we fish, which is, I feel like just what a lot of people are missing in general in the fly fishing world space.
Yeah. We'll get there. And I think there was a lot of, well, no, I can't even speak on behalf of some of the people on there. I don't know. I don't get it. I'm lost all the time with the way of the world right now. Let's get back. First of all, thank you for addressing that with me. That was
Oh,
always
that
something that was a little bit of an elephant in the room for me.
yeah, you're the only person I've had the opportunity to like speak, candidly about. Because also, there's stuff in the fly fishing industry where I was like, I want to say this because I don't want, I don't like talking shit, especially about like small businesses or people or whatever, or how stuff interacts on the internet. But I saw some comments and I saw, how people respond. And I just go, oh, and that's a mental note of stuff. And I haven't been able to I can't talk to comments about this because I go, we don't care.
Yeah, we just don't
We
get it
don't
either. Yeah.
understand it.
What about the fact that when Drake, and again, I can't speak on behalf of him, and maybe I'll actually see if I can get one of those guys to represent on the roundtable forum. He limited comments on his cover photo, the Drake on the Drake cover photo. When he posted that on his Instagram, he deleted comments. Surely, I'm sure that he would have gotten some, or didn't delete comments. He like blocked comments or whatever, comments restricted. I'm sure he would have had some interesting comments from his community. And well, I didn't get to see them. I wonder if this is the sort of thing where it really did fall through the cracks, where it's almost like his community didn't know what to make of it. The fly fishing community didn't know what to make of it. And I find it very interesting, just as a case study, why this in particular would fall through the cracks. Maybe the disconnect is, and of course, I'm some white woman saying this, so of course the disconnect fell through the cracks for me, but I'm trying to understand it. I think it's an interesting topic that might go way deeper than I think.
Yeah, from my personal knowledge, that I think every time I go on Drake's Instagram and go to his comments are usually limited.
Oh,
Like
okay.
after a certain time, they like after he posts something, of course he has, trillions of people who comment or talk to him or whatever. So I think after a certain time, all of his comments are limited.
Okay.
So if he collabs, I don't think I could never imagine him one, and maybe not in like a bad way, but caring about
No.
what fly fishing people are saying
He's like the
about him.
biggest
Like that's
troll in the rap industry. That man trolls
yeah,
everybody. He's used to it.
I guess yeah. So so the comments thing I could see would just probably being limited from his especially if he did it on his part of his page, probably just limited.
Good
Yeah,
point.
I don't
Good point.
him falling through the cracks. I still just think fly fishing is so niche that even if someone who is a huge fan of Drake knew what Nocta was, because I didn't know what Nocta was. My best friend, who is the biggest Drake stan, barely knew what Nocta was. And then I showed him, and he was like, oh, that's dope. I'm gonna get some stuff. Like, so I think fly fishing was so niche that someone seeing Drake starting a fly fishing clothing brand, which I use fly fishing in quotes just because people are like, I saw some comments being like, this isn't fly fishing gear. And I'm like, no, but it's cool as hell. Like, yeah, it's not like a regular vest or a sling pack or whatever. But I have some of the stuff in my room. And I mean, I'm like, I could never fish with this stuff realistically. But when I walk on the street, people go, "Yo, that's hard," and I go, "It's this Drake fly fishing line." And they go, "Where?" And I go, "Yeah." So it's just like, so people who even know what Nocta is, I think where fly fishing is so niche that Drake fly fishing didn't even, probably just like they thought Drake bought a fly fishing magazine to be on the cover. Like I just not that it fell through the cracks, but I just think people just go,
Yeah.
oh, okay, cool.
Nothing surprising anymore. Well,
Yeah.
listen, okay, I want to come. Thank you for that. We're going to revisit this. Let me come back to you. So, what's going on? I mean, you're not even 30 yet. What is in your future?
Hopefully getting a chance to fish with you, that'd be incredible. That'd
Consider
be
that check. Let me know.
um yeah, I don't have much uh I don't know how to say it. One of my favorite quotes is from Cat Williams. People are like, "What are your plans?" He's like, "My plans change. If I get super sick tomorrow, my plan is to get healthy." So my plan is just to continue to like have fun, be a good dad to a 7-month-old baby, um, make people laugh, try to teach and learn at the same time. So I don't really have plans. My only plan is trying to get comedians on the fly to people to like and share critiques so I can make it just like a chill show that people just go, "Oh yeah, that's just a fishing show." Um, my plan is, tour the country and make people laugh. I do want to start my own nonprofit where I could go to different cities and give away a bunch of fly fishing gear and fishing stuff, and then leave, just sort of drop in like fly fishing Santa and then bounce. Um, so yeah, I mean, those are like just long term goals, stuff that happens. But um, yeah, I feel very grateful and blessed and lucky to be able to do those things in the first place and meet cool people and have the opportunities I've had. I mean, like I mentioned this, but if anyone's listening, tarpon are my favorite fish. So if anybody ever wants to go on a tarpon trip, please just invite me and I will be there in a heartbeat because I love those fish so much. Or Dorado or grayling on the mouse. Those are the three fish my dreams. So those are my fishing plans, and then everything else will fall in after that.
Oh, I love it. The first thing I'm going to do is watch this Comedians on the Fly. I'm very intrigued. Which episode should I
Oh,
watch? What's your favorite one?
there's a couple. There's Morgan Gallo, who is a comic from Denver slash Tampa, but she has a podcast called My Body My Choice. So she's very about body positivity in women. So she shits on men the whole episode. That could
Oh
be a
no.
fun one.
Okay.
There's an episode called with the Grawlix Boys. They used to have a TV show, and they're best friends, but they just talk shit to each other nonstop. So that's very fun to watch. I've one with my best friend BK Sherrod. There's like 7 episodes right now. So I think any of them are great. They all have like a different vibe and feel because that's what comedy is. Like
Yeah, they
each
all have
one
their own
has like
tones and niche.
the comic's personality is on it. So
I'm so excited by this. This is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you. Honestly, I didn't even know you were a biologist until like I knew about the comedian, I knew about the fishing, and then when I saw biologist, I was like, well, that's just a given. It's
yeah, I'm
just
a
you're taking two
nerd.
of my favorite things and you put them together. I mean, three now. That's super cool. So, all right, well, I'm going to get this up. I would like to get this up actually quite soon because I think that you're the sort of voice that we need to hear more. So I will get this up. Is there anything that I've missed that you wanted to add or to ask me?
No, I mean, I would love to ask you more about you. You probably get asked all the time, like crazy adventure fishing stories, but we could save that to another time where we could just talk fish the whole time.
I reckon you're on the right track with your Dorado. I think you should pursue that angle. I think you'll love it.
I think I like fish that eat other fish. So
Yeah.
that's yeah, tarpon, which I've caught a bunch of tarpon, but I just love them I just love them so much. Tarpon, Dorado is next, and then I
Grayling.
just want to catch a grayling on a mouse, swinging a mouse.
I love it. I like your
Which
style.
I have to go to Alaska to do, which I haven't fished yet there. So yeah,
Cool. Well, I'm super stoked. How can people find you?
People can find me at my website where I update my comedy dates at elandstribling.com. My Instagram at Eeland Stribling, or Comedians on the Fly on Instagram. And then this Christmas I'll be giving away some fly fishing rods and reels on my Instagram. Just grassroots. People don't have to follow me or like something or subscribe to something. If you just nominate someone who you think would love to be outside but can't afford any fly fishing gear, I have a ton of stuff I'm giving away. So check out, that will be coming out Christmas time, New Year's, as I'm sharing it with people.
All right, I'm going to bump your episode. I think, to next week. Yeah.
Oh, I mean,
No, I want
if
to.
it's too much, then you don't
I
have to
want
do
to.
it.
I genuinely
Okay.
want to. I'm going to bump you for a December date. Locked and
Okay.
loaded. It's coming out. Okay, cool. Well, I cannot thank you enough for making and taking the time to do this. I would love to follow up on yes, fishing together, and also doing that. That let's do an into the backing. So put some thought into who you want a roundtable with, and we'll have a fun, but not so fun little debate.
I think it'll be fun. Fun isn't a great word, but I think it'll be good. It'll
It'll
be
be
good fun.
enlightening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it. Well, thanks so much for thinking of me and having me on. Thank you. It means a lot.
Yeah. Well, likewise. Cool. I look forward to getting to know you even better.
No problem. You have a good day.
You have a good evening.
All right. Bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye.